Hi, everybody. Welcome to our pilot episode of You're Just Human.
We are two best friends where we talk about our lives and basically remind each other that, most things in life, it's not that deep. You're just human.
And this actually came into inception because Jenny and I will send each other really long voice memos of things you have to get off your chest and just share with somebody else and get that validation. But we started coining these voice memos into the abyss because we'd be like, hey, I just need to get this off my chest and I'm sending this into the abyss, like no need to respond.
But you better respond.
And we send like a 20-minute voice memo. But we decided we wanted to open up the forum and share it with you guys because, we all have human moments.
And I'm sure like most of you listening and for our OG viewers out there via YouTube, we were formerly 20-somethings and now Amy and Jenny. And you probably saw us evolve throughout our 20s in the lens of our career. But we wanted to expand that because, life is so much than work. And also, there's so many human moments at work that people don't talk about a lot. We just wanted to create more space for that.
Just for some backstory, it should come as no surprise, but Jenny and I actually became friends while yapping with each other. We have this like very pivotal moment on the bench where we just like sat and talked for hours and we were bonding over the same breakup story that we had over our high school ex-boyfriends at the time.
Yeah. And I think my first impression of Amy was like immediately there was chemistry. I'm like, dude, this is my person. The vibe was there. We were resonating and seeing each other. And the night kept going on and on and on. And I'm like, bro, this girl talks so much. But I love her. But like, oh man, I'm getting tired.
And then my impression of Jenny back then was so different actually of just my impression of you overall now. But Jenny used to be really into the color hot pink, which might come as a surprise to many viewers here, but she would literally pull up to the gym every day in this hot pink like jacket with hot pink shoes. And I was like, this is the girl like on Wednesdays we wear pink vibes, but it's actually like every day.
Every day.
Just Wednesday. That just kind of goes to show like we've both changed a lot in our 20s and we've been around to kind of witness it from each other, and it's just crazy that we are talking about it right now on our YouTube channel of all places.
And podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. So obviously this is a pilot episode, so bear with us. It might be a little all over the place, but we kind of wanted to make an ode to our 20s because we're turning 30 next month. And I think a really fun place to start, especially because we don't talk about things like this on our YouTube channel, is just like funny core friendship memories of us growing up.
How much are we gonna roast each other in these
I know. We'll see. You know how you have those stories in your friendship that come up like once a year? You just like retell it again and again. This is one of them, and I'll tell it. I'll put myself on blast. So basically, it was our 21st birthday, and Amy and I's birthday, we usually celebrate together because it's like a week apart. We were like, let's go to Vegas. Let's have a proper 21st birthday. We were pumped. We got all dressed up and we actually were on our way to a club. I think it was like...
We never even made it there.
Okay. Spoiler. We're like on our way to a club and then we ended up meeting a group of people that we actually know. So we joined them for a little pregame. Mind you, I didn't really drink ever before. And I was like doing everything you shouldn't be doing, like mixing all the alcohols, right? And I guess what happened, this is the point in which I blacked out, okay? Apparently we were on the way to the club and I guess I just like passed out on the casino
floor. No, you fell asleep on the casino seat, like on the little game slot seat.
See, I don't even know. I just know I passed out on the casino floor and there is a policy in Vegas. When you pass out, they are required to call the ambulance. So we didn't even make it to the club, and then I was
getting like called the ambulance. And I was so I guess to take over the memory of that night, only one person can join the ambulance with you. So obviously I got on, but I was also pretty intoxicated at this point, and I had no idea what was happening. And the poor ambulance guy driving, I was crying, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, my friend is dying!" And then when we got there, they put you to the other side of the door. So I was just sitting there in my dress for Vegas by myself in the waiting room with all these people. And I was like, oh my God.
I woke up and I think it was like 3 a.m. Immediately, I was like, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost? I need to leave right now. And I totally thought I got alcohol poisoning. But
Yeah.
the nurse was like, honey, you were just dehydrated. Like, you just need to drink water. And I'm like, okay. And from then, I learned a crucial lesson: always hydrate.
We have been friends for a while, so I feel like we have Jenny's stories to reference, but we also have my stories to reference. And I don't know what it is, but I'm like the queen of falling for scams.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going there. Okay, let's go there.
Yeah, there was one moment in my life that led Jenny to say that, which was I basically found myself in the middle of Burbank with like cops surrounding me, and there's a whole backstory to it. So basically, to go back, I had a day where I had like no meetings, which was like very odd for me. And of course, this would happen that day because I actually had the luxury of like picking up a phone call. And when I picked up the phone call, the caller ID, it said something like immigration deportation or something like that, which is kind of crazy that I even fell for it because I have a US passport. But anyways, long story short, they were like, we know you also have a Korean passport. And like you didn't pay your Korean passport fee, so like we're gonna like have to hold you and you're gonna have to pay bail. And I was like, wait, oh my God, I have no idea what they're talking about because I do have a Korean passport, but what's this like fee I need to pay? So I started texting my friend and like Jenny in a frenzy, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like they said I'm gonna go to jail, blah blah blah. But also while I got that phone call, I think I was driving. So I was like somewhere in Burbank. And long story short, my friends thought I got kidnapped. And Jenny was even texting me like, what was the name of your childhood dog? Because I think I just sounded very erratic over text. And then I like look up and I see cops surrounding me and I like burst into tears because I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be held in the deportation thing, but I have a US passport. I'm so confused. And long story short, my friends had called the cops because they thought I got kidnapped. But that's a whole story, which is kind of anticlimactic, but it was just so dramatic in the moment. If Jenny's like the ER girl, I have become like the scam girl. And I think that just kind of shows that we've been through a lot with each other. And
Yes,
there's
we've
a,
seen each other's most human moments. Let's say that. Let's
yes.
put it that way.
So obviously we've just like blasted our own human moments, but I feel like sometimes in human moments like these, you kind of do life a little bit more and you have like new philosophies like stay hydrated and double check who's calling you. But I guess like are there any other life philosophies you feel like you've learned that are a little bit more reflective and deeper than the ones like we just talked about?
Yeah. I think the one that if I had to pick top two, three like learnings, I guess, that kind of shifted how I live, I think it would be for me realizing the value of connection. You know how they say the quality of your relationships reflect the quality of your life? I remember like a very clear moment. I think this was like 3 years ago, and everything was popping off in terms of work. But in that moment, I was like in this really bad anxiety avoidance loop. And I found myself just not being the kind of friend and daughter and whatever to the people I care about in my life. And I realized because I feel like my relationships aren't in a good spot, like I don't even care about all of these accomplishments. And I think that was a huge lightning bolt moment for me that, what I truly value and what gives me fulfillment and joy are people.
What you shared is just such a human moment where I feel like all of us can relate to kind of prioritizing something that we thought was important. And then when you kind of get to the end, you realize all the things that you had to put in the back burner to prioritize that thing. And you kind of get to really see whether it was worth it or not, or whether you would do
Exactly.
it again.
And I think the key difference is like there will always be sacrifices, but I realize it's not great if those sacrifices are unintentional. Versus I'm like, hey, I'm intentionally sacrificing XYZ and I'm willing to suffer the consequences. But I didn't have the self-awareness in that moment to do that. And then that's when things backfired.
I like how you said the word intention because I think it kind of connects to my life philosophy that was more recent, which is it's good to ask yourself the hard questions. And
Mm.
I think the biggest risk is to not take a risk. And what I mean by that is, I think there's like general existential questions we all ask ourselves. Do I like what I do? A lot of us question our ambitions and our careers. And then on the flip side, a question we ask a lot in our 20s is, what type of partner do I want? Is this the person that I see myself kind of ending up with? And I think with that note, a lot of times we kind of shy away from what brings uncertainty. even if we're not super sure that what we have is what we want. To that note, like the viewers might know that I was in like a very long-term relationship, but it was kind of a relationship I had been in like all throughout my 20s. And I kind of kept running into the question, am I somebody that can just like settle down without really knowing that this is what I want? Right. And like a part of it was I was like, do I want more experience? Like dating other people. I think I didn't really know where that was coming from. I wasn't sure if it was because I had never really like dated anybody else before. So like, am I just somebody that needs more experience? Or am I just someone that like doesn't even see myself like really settling down? I think I just had all these existential questions, but at the end of the day, I was in that relationship for a long time because it was a very good relationship. But I think another reason I was in it for so long is because I was scared to kind of jump into the unknown. And this was a relationship where I really just like knew what was going on. And I think you can find a lot of security in a relationship, even like a friendship. And sometimes you are afraid to let that go when it's kind of run its course. And I think in the moment, it was a very hard question to ask. But now, as I'm looking back, it's a question that I'm very glad that I asked myself.
And I think that leads me to like another life philosophy. Most times, if you're making a change, taking a risk, or doing something scary, most times things will get worse before it gets better. And I realize it's in that stage especially that I need to be more compassionate to my human moments.
I think that's kind of what we're trying to encapsulate in this podcast is like sometimes things really suck. Jenny and I have been having a lot of human moments ourselves recently. If you've been following our YouTube channel, you know that we've been more in a season of uncertainty. And I think that kind of leads me to one of my last life philosophies, I guess I'll share with you guys here, which is roots over fruits. And Jenny said sometimes things get worse before they get better. But I think during the season when things are really hard, we like to remind ourselves that there's things that are growing. It's just not really to the visible eye. So there's things that are kind of growing underground. And eventually, when you do things with intention, it'll turn more into fruits.
That kind of reminds me, I was venting to a friend recently about like being frustrated at like a lack of progress on my end. And she was like, Jenny, you don't plant a seed and then dig it up every hour to check that it's growing. You water it, you give it fertilizer, you keep doing the work, but ultimately you're patient, assuming that you're doing the work. And I was like, you're right. I keep digging up the seed. And because I keep digging it up, I'm not giving the seed the time it requires to grow these roots. And I feel like especially as we enter our 30s, there's this like pressure of, oh, wow, we need to have everything figured out. But like, that's so not true. Come on. If anything, I feel like being in a period of uncertainty is such a great indicator for growth coming ahead. That kind of helps me see the long-term view.
When I think about us on the bench back then, it just feels so long ago. And Jenny, I guess if you were there now, do you feel like you would say something to that girl on the bench?
Probably like retire the hot pink jacket. That's one. But I think I would just tell her, like, don't worry so much about where you're going to go and where you're going to end up. Like, invest in the people around you, invest in yourself, and just trust the process. I think if I could save so much, like all the worry and doubt and the heartache for myself, like I would love to do that. Because at the end of the day, it's so much of our perceived stress is in our own heads.
I think it's funny because I feel like you and I could apply that same advice to ourselves right now.
Absolutely. 100%.
So that concludes the end of our pilot episode. I know that was a little bit all over the place, but you know, be patient with us too. We're like the seed trying to sprout.
Yeah, exactly.
Overall, we just wanted to share like a little bit more of ourselves with you guys. So I hope you could at least get to know us a little bit better through this pilot.
And please, you know, if you guys have any thoughts on what direction you want us to take this further, let us know. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.